What if I told you a 17-year-old girl walked into a courtroom and single-handedly dismantled a corrupt landlord, a team of veteran lawyers, and a judge who laughed in her face? No law degree, no legal title, just raw brilliance and the courage to fight for justice. Mocked, threatened, and nearly destroyed, she didn't just survive. She turned the entire system on its head. This is the true story of Maya Brooks, and once you hear it, you'll never look at power the same way again. Let's rewind, back to where it all began. Maya Brooks lived in the quiet suburbs of Chicago with her grandmother, Clara. Maya wasn't like other teens. By the age of 7, she was devouring law books for fun. By 12, she was debating college students and winning. Yet she never craved the spotlight. Her grandmother, a retired schoolteacher, taught her humility and warned her, "Use your gifts not for pride, but for justice." That lesson came calling one summer afternoon. While helping her grandmother with groceries, Maya overheard a young mother, Teresa, sobbing at the corner store. Her landlord was evicting her, 2 children in tow, claiming she had violated her lease. Teresa's voice cracked. "I've paid every cent on time." "It's a lie." "He just wants me gone so he can raise the rent." Maya's heart clenched. She stepped forward, calm, curious, determined. "Do you have your receipts? Your lease?" she asked. Teresa nodded, yes. She had everything. Maya's eyes hardened with resolve. "Then you have a case." "Let me help." Teresa blinked in disbelief. "You're just a kid," Maya smiled. "I've been told that before." In the days that followed, Maya dissected every page of Teresa's documents. And what she found was damning. Contradictions, lies, a landlord counting on fear to silence the truth. She drafted a formal letter, precise, professional, threatening legal action if the eviction continued. The landlord ignored it. Big mistake. With quiet fire in her chest, Maya helped Teresa file a case in small claims court. Word spread like wildfire. The girl who always had her nose in books was about to face down a landlord in court. Neighbors whispered. Reporters circled. Some cheered her on. Others mocked the idea. A teenager? In a courtroom? Ridiculous, but Maya didn't back down. This wasn't about her age. It wasn't even about Teresa alone. This was about standing up to injustice, about proving that truth knows no age, no color, no barrier. The day of the hearing arrived. The courtroom overflowed with spectators, cameras, journalists, even curious lawyers, eager to watch the so-called child attorney fail. Maya entered, dressed in a simple navy blazer and skirt. No fancy armor, just quiet confidence. But before she could even speak, Judge Patterson cut her down with a smirk. "And who exactly are you supposed to be?" He scoffed. Maya's voice was calm, steady. "I'm representing the plaintiff, Your Honor." Laughter rippled through the room. Patterson chuckled. "This is a joke, right? Some prank?" Whispers, smirks, stifled laughter. But Maya didn't flinch. She stood there, hands clasped, waiting. When her moment came, she delivered. Every word sharp, every precedent cited, every lie exposed. The room fell silent as the kid commanded the courtroom with the precision of a veteran, and then came the twist that froze even Judge Patterson. Maya revealed her credentials. She had secretly passed the bar exam at just 16 years old. Gasps exploded. Cameras flashed. The courtroom descended into chaos. Judge Patterson slammed his gavel, rattled, pale-faced. "This court will take a 10-minute recess." He practically fled to his chambers. Maya sat down slowly, her composure intact, though her heart thundered. She had revealed her hand, and there was no turning back now. When the judge returned, his arrogance was gone. His voice steady but not mocking. "Miss Brooks, this court acknowledges your credentials. Proceed." Maya rose, deliberate, focused. She handed over fresh evidence, emails, records, highlighted inconsistencies. Judge Patterson's expression shifted as he read. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed, not at Maya, but at the landlord's attorney. "Mr. Cole," the judge began, his voice cold. And in that moment, everyone knew The tide had turned. "These emails directly contradict your client's testimony," Maya said firmly, her voice echoing across the silent courtroom. She held her ground, her hands steady as she pointed to the highlighted lines. "Do you have an explanation for this?" The landlord's attorney, Mr. Cole, a graying man with years of courtroom swagger, hesitated. He cleared his throat, buying time. "Your Honor, these emails could have been fabricated. We would need time to verify their authenticity." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Spectators leaned forward, some whispering that the defense might actually have a point, but Maya didn't flinch. She had anticipated this exact move. "Your Honor," she said, stepping closer with unshakable calm. "I prepared for that argument." She reached into her neatly organized folder and pulled out another sheet. "This is the verified chain of custody for the emails, along with metadata authentication from a certified digital forensics expert." Gasps spread through the gallery. Even the landlord's face shifted from smug to startled. Judge Patterson's gavel slammed against the bench. Bang, bang, "Order!" "I said order!" he barked, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of surprise. Maya returned to her seat, her calm demeanor unshaken. The judge adjusted his glasses, scanning the verification documents. His jaw tightened. "Mr. Cole," he said icily, "unless you can provide concrete evidence to refute this, I will have no choice but to accept these emails as valid evidence." The defense attorney stumbled over his words. "Your Honor, we need additional time to review." "Denied," the judge cut in sharply. "This court has already spent too much time indulging baseless delays. We proceed now. Miss Brooks, continue." Maya rose again, her voice clear and precise. With the confidence of someone twice her age, she walked the court step by step through the timeline of events, linking the landlord's lies directly to violations of housing law. She cited precedent after precedent, weaving together a case so airtight that even the spectators could feel the defense crumbling. At the defense table, the landlord shifted furiously in his seat, his broad face reddening with rage. He leaned in, whispering harshly into his attorney's ear. Maya caught the movement out of the corner of her eye, but didn't allow it to break her rhythm. She pressed forward, each point sharper than the last. Finally, as she neared her closing argument, the landlord snapped. He shot to his feet, his chair screeching against the floor. "She's lying!" he shouted, jabbing a finger at Maya. His voice cracked with desperation. "This whole thing is a setup. A kid like her can't know all this legal nonsense." Chaos erupted. Reporters scribbled furiously. The gallery exploded in whispers and gasps. "Order!" Judge Patterson thundered, slamming his gavel over and over. His voice boomed across the chamber. "Sit down, Mr. Reynolds, or I will hold you in contempt of court." The landlord froze, then slumped back into his seat, chest heaving with fury. Maya inhaled slowly, reclaiming the silence. "Your Honor," she said steadily, "if Mr. Reynolds has any evidence to support his accusation, I invite him to present it. Otherwise, I respectfully ask that this court focus on the facts." The judge's eyes flicked from Maya to the landlord. "Mr. Reynolds," he warned, "you will remain silent unless spoken to." Then, with a nod toward Maya, "Miss Brooks, proceed." Maya delivered her final points with crisp authority, every word reinforced with logic, precedent, and evidence. By the time she sat down, the courtroom felt different, shifted. Spectators no longer saw a child. They saw a force to be reckoned with, but the defense wasn't finished. Mr. Cole called his next witness, a maintenance worker from the apartment complex, a nervous man named Davis. He claimed he had seen multiple people going in and out of Teresa's apartment. When it came time for cross-examination, Maya rose slowly, every step deliberate. She faced Davis with steady eyes. "Mr. Davis, you testified that you saw multiple people entering Miss Carter's apartment. Can you specify how many? And on what dates?" Davis fidgeted. Maybe 4 or 5 people? A couple of months ago?" "A couple of months ago," Maya repeated. "Do you remember the exact dates?" "No, not exactly." "Did you report this to anyone at the time?" "Well, no," he admitted, his voice shrinking. "Didn't think it was a big deal back then." A faint smile tugged at Maya's lips. So to clarify, you cannot provide dates, you did not report this, and you have no evidence to support your claim. Correct? Davis shifted in his seat, face flushing. Yeah, I guess so. Thank you, Mr. Davis, Maya said, stepping back. Her voice was calm, but the damage was done. Teresa caught her eye from across the courtroom, gratitude and hope flickering through her worried expression. Maya gave her the faintest reassuring nod. The rest of the proceedings paled in comparison to the earlier fireworks. But as the judge adjourned for the day, tension still clung to the room. Outside the courthouse, a storm awaited. Reporters swarmed, microphones and cameras flashing in Maya's face. She shielded Teresa, guiding her firmly through the crowd. By the time they reached home, Maya collapsed onto the couch, exhaustion finally breaking through her armor. Clara set a warm cup of tea on the table and sat beside her. "You were incredible today," her grandmother whispered, pride softening her tired voice. "I'm so proud of you." Maya managed a small, weary smile. "Thanks, Grandma. But it's not over yet. Tomorrow will be harder." Clara squeezed her hand. "Then remember why you're doing this. Not for glory, but for people like Teresa. For everyone who has been told they don't matter." Maya nodded, determination reigniting in her eyes. "I won't forget." But the next morning brought a new twist. As she entered the courthouse, Maya froze. Two uniformed police officers stood at the entrance, speaking with the landlord, who wore a smug grin. One officer spotted Maya and walked toward her, his expression grim. "Miss Brooks," he said. "We need to talk." Teresa gasped beside her. Maya steadied her breath, her face calm but her heart racing. "What's the problem, officer?" she asked evenly. The landlord smirked from across the lobby. "We've received a report from Mr. Reynolds," the officer said. "He's accusing you of falsifying evidence in this case." The air seemed to freeze. Teresa's hand flew to her mouth. Reporters snapped photos. Maya's pulse quickened, but she didn't blink. "That's a serious accusation," she said firmly. "What proof does he have?" The officer hesitated. "We're not here to determine that. We're doing our due diligence. You'll need to come down to the station for questioning." The landlord leaned back, smug and satisfied. Maya met his eyes with steady defiance. Then she turned to the officer. "I understand. But I'd like to speak with my client and my legal counsel before going anywhere." The officer nodded reluctantly. "Fine, don't take too long." Maya stepped aside, lowering her voice to Teresa. "This is a scare tactic. He knows he's losing. Stay calm. Don't engage with him or his lawyer." "But what if they arrest you?" Teresa whispered, panic trembling in her voice. "They won't," Maya said firmly. "I've done nothing wrong. And they have no proof otherwise." She pulled out her phone and called Clara. The old woman answered instantly. "Maya, are you all right?" "Grandma, I need you to contact Mr. Harris. The landlord just filed a false accusation." "The police want to question me?" Clara's voice hardened like steel. "Stay strong, sweetheart. I'll call him now. Don't let them intimidate you." Maya ended the call, her expression calm, her resolve unbreakable. The landlord smirked across the lobby. But this time, Maya didn't just look back. She smiled, because she knew he had just made his biggest mistake yet. She turned back to the officer who stood waiting near the door. His eyes flickered with unease, but his stance was firm. "I'm ready," Maya said at last, her voice calm, unwavering. "But let me make something perfectly clear. I've done nothing illegal. This is nothing more than an attempt to intimidate me." The officer gave a faint nod, not daring to contradict her, but he didn't respond either. Together they walked down the hall toward the station's exit. The landlord watched from across the lobby, his lips curled into a satisfied grin, but Maya refused to let him see even a flicker of doubt. Her chin stayed high, her stride steady. At the police station, she was led into a narrow interrogation room. The walls were blank, painted a dull gray, the kind of place designed to drain confidence. A metal table sat in the center, flanked by two chairs, and the buzzing of the overhead light only deepened the sense of isolation. One of the officers who had escorted her placed a tape recorder on the table and clicked it on. Miss Brooks, he began formally, you are not under arrest, but we need to ask you questions about the evidence you submitted in court. Mr. Reynolds claims it was fabricated. Maya folded her hands neatly on the table. Her expression never wavered. The evidence is authentic, she said with crisp precision. I have full documentation to prove its validity, including a certified chain of custody from a digital forensics expert. The officer frowned, his skepticism obvious. Do you have those documents with you? They're in my case file back in the courtroom, Maya replied evenly. You're welcome to review them at any time. The officer leaned back, studying her. Then why would Mr. Reynolds make this accusation if it wasn't true? Maya's voice sharpened. Because he's desperate. His case is unraveling, and this is the only way he knows how to fight back. Lies and intimidation. That's his entire strategy. The officer held her gaze for a long moment, then stood abruptly. Wait here. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts. She took a slow breath. Despite her outward calm, a flicker of unease crept in. What if they dragged this out? What if the judge believed the landlord's lies? For the first time, doubt brushed against her resolve. A knock at the door broke the silence. It opened, and in walked Mr. Harris, the family friend Clara had called. A retired attorney with sharp eyes and an iron presence, he carried himself like someone who had seen every trick in the book. He gave Maya a steady nod before turning to the officer. I'm here as Miss Brooks's legal counsel, Harris said firmly. Now tell me, what's the actual basis for this interrogation? The officer explained the landlord's allegations, his tone defensive. Harris listened without flinching. When the officer finished, Harris leaned forward, his voice low and commanding. This is baseless. If Mr. Reynolds has evidence, let him present it in court. Otherwise, you're wasting everyone's time and attempting to intimidate a minor. Unless you plan to arrest her, this conversation is over. The officer shifted uncomfortably. We're not detaining her. Then she's free to go. Harris cut in, his voice slicing through the room. Silence lingered for a tense beat before the officer finally nodded. She's free to go, but we'll be following up on this. Maya rose from her seat, composure fully restored. I'll be happy to cooperate, she said coolly, within the bounds of the law. As they left the station, Harris placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You handled yourself well, he said. But be careful. This landlord is playing dirtier than most, Maya gave a tight nod. I expected nothing less. Thank you for coming, Mr. Harris. Anytime, he said with a faint smile. Now go back in there and finish this fight. Back at the courthouse, Teresa rushed to her side, her eyes wide with worry. Maya, are you okay? What happened? They let me go, Maya replied calmly. They had nothing to hold me on. Just as I told you, Teresa exhaled in relief, but her hands trembled. What do we do now? We stick to the plan, Maya said firmly. This was just another obstacle. Nothing more. That afternoon, the hearing resumed. The landlord sat slouched at the defense table, smirking as though victory were inevitable. He clearly expected the police stunt to rattle Maya. But when she stood to continue her argument, it was as though nothing had happened. Her words were sharp, her evidence damning. Witness after witness confirmed the landlord's history of exploiting tenants, painting a portrait of greed and corruption. With each passing minute, the landlord's swagger began to fade. His shoulders sagged, his jaw clenched tighter. But just when it seemed Maya was turning the tide, the defense struck again. As the court prepared to adjourn, Mr. Cole rose with theatrical precision. Your Honor, the defense has just received new evidence. Evidence we believe will change the course of this case. We request an emergency motion to introduce it tomorrow. The gallery buzzed with whispers. The judge's brow furrowed. What kind of evidence? Cole hesitated for effect, then produced a thick folder. Financial records, Your Honor. Records that suggest Miss Carter has been withholding income from undisclosed sources. The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. Maya's heart sank as she looked at Teresa. Her client's face was pale, eyes wide with shock. Judge Patterson's gavel thundered. Order, we will review the motion tomorrow. This court is adjourned. As Maya packed her files, the sinking weight in her chest grew heavier. If the defense had fabricated evidence, and she suspected they had, it could undermine everything. I don't understand, Teresa whispered as they left the courtroom, tears welling. What financial records? I don't have anything to hide. Maya placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Don't worry. We'll figure this out. This is another trick, nothing more. But inside, doubt gnawed at her. That night, long after the city had gone quiet, Maya sat in her room under the glow of her laptop screen. Every document, every email, every statement lay spread across her desk. She combed through each one, searching for cracks in the landlord's trap. Clara appeared in the doorway, her voice soft with concern. You need rest, sweetheart. You can't fight tomorrow's battle if you burn yourself out tonight. I know, Grandma, Maya murmured, her eyes fixed on the screen, but I can't let them blindside us. Not now, Clara walked in, placing a gentle hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. You've done all you can. Trust yourself. Trust the truth. Maya closed her laptop reluctantly, but sleep brought no peace. Her mind raced with questions. What evidence could they possibly have? And how far were they willing to go to destroy Teresa? The next morning, the courthouse was packed. The air was electric with tension, reporters crowding the benches, spectators buzzing with speculation. Maya and Teresa sat side by side, trying to look calm though their nerves screamed otherwise. Judge Patterson entered with his usual stern expression. The room hushed instantly. This court is now in session. Mr. Cole, you may proceed with your motion. Cole stepped forward, holding the folder like a weapon. Your Honor, these records suggest Miss Carter has been receiving hidden income. Income she failed to disclose. He placed the thick stack onto the bench. We believe this evidence will expose the truth and change the outcome of this case. We believe this information is relevant to the case, as it directly pertains to Miss Carter's ability to pay rent and the claims of financial hardship she has made, Mr. Cole declared, his voice booming with fake confidence. He held the thick folder aloft like a trophy before handing it to the bailiff, who passed it carefully to Judge Patterson. The judge flipped through the papers slowly, his brow furrowing deeper with every page. The courtroom leaned in, eager for a glimpse of whatever bombshell had just been dropped. At last, the judge looked up, his expression unreadable. Miss Brooks, he said, his voice calm but firm. Have you had an opportunity to review this evidence? Maya stood, shoulders squared, her blazer crisp against the polished wood of the bench. No, Your Honor. This is the first time I've seen these documents. I respectfully request adequate time to review them and verify their authenticity. Before the judge could respond, Cole pounced. Your Honor, the evidence is straightforward and should be admitted immediately. Any delay would unfairly disadvantage my client. Maya stepped forward, her voice steady but sharp. Your Honor, this evidence was presented at the 11th hour with no prior notice. These are serious allegations. To deny us time to examine them would be to deny my client a fair defense. The judge drummed his fingers on the bench for a long moment, weighing the arguments. Finally, he nodded. Miss Brooks is correct. The plaintiff will have until tomorrow morning to review this evidence. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck, but the tension didn't fade. As soon as the hearing ended, Maya and Teresa rushed to a quiet corner of the courthouse. Maya tore through the folder, her eyes scanning each page with laser focus. Her stomach sank. The records showed bank statements and payment logs, documents that suggested Teresa had been receiving large sums of money from an unfamiliar account. I don't understand, Teresa whispered, her hands trembling. I've never seen these before. They're not mine. None of this is mine. Maya's jaw tightened as she examined the documents. They look official, she murmured, but something feels off. Her laptop was open within seconds. Fingers flying across the keyboard, Maya began cross-referencing account numbers, transaction IDs, and routing codes. Teresa watched anxiously, clutching her bag as if it might anchor her to reality. After nearly an hour of silence, Maya's eyes lit up. There, she said, pointing to the screen. These deposits came from a company called Harmony Solutions. Ever heard of them? Teresa shook her head. No, who are they? That's what I'm going to find out. Her search revealed that Harmony Solutions was nothing more than a shadow. No real business, no employees, no operations. Just a P.O. box across the country and a bare-bones website with vague jargon about consulting services. Maya leaned back, the pieces snapping together. This company doesn't exist. It's a front. And if I'm right, it's our smoking gun. But how do we prove it? Teresa asked, her voice cracking under the weight of desperation. Maya's eyes narrowed. We'll need help. Someone who knows how to follow digital footprints. That evening, she met Aaron at a nearby diner, a wiry college student studying cybersecurity, known in the neighborhood for being able to dig up almost anything. He grinned when Maya slid the folder across the table. Fabricated financial records? He said, eyebrows rising. That's not just shady. That's criminal. But if there's a digital trail, I'll find it. He cracked open his laptop, and for the next hour his fingers danced across the keys. The glow of the screen reflected in his glasses as the code scrolled by. Finally, he leaned back with a smirk. Got it. Harmony Solutions isn't just a fake company. It's registered under a holding corporation. And guess who owns it? Maya's stomach dropped even before the words left his mouth. Your landlord. Mr. Reynolds. Her jaw clenched. So it's him. He created all this to frame Teresa. Exactly, Aaron said, tapping the screen. And here's the best part. I've got the metadata to prove it. These transactions were generated using a basic financial template. Amateur stuff? Anyone with training will see right through it. Maya allowed herself a small smile for the first time that day. Aaron, you just saved this case. Just doing my part, he replied. But his eyes darkened. Be careful, Maya. Men like him don't play fair. The next morning, the courthouse was electric with anticipation. The crowd packed tighter than before, reporters whispering into their recorders, cameras flashing at the doors. Mr. Cole strode to the bench, puffed up with confidence. Your Honor, he announced. We submit these records as proof that Miss Carter has been dishonest about her income. The gallery hummed with murmurs. All eyes turned to Maya. Judge Patterson adjusted his glasses. Miss Brooks, are you prepared to respond? Maya rose slowly, her navy blazer catching the light. Her voice was steady, deliberate. Yes, Your Honor. I am prepared. She walked to the center of the courtroom, every step echoing like a drumbeat. What the defense has presented is not evidence. It is fraud. These financial records were fabricated by Mr. Reynolds to discredit my client. Gasps filled the room. Maya handed the judge a thick packet of documents, each page a dagger aimed at Reynolds. She laid out the trail piece by piece. Harmony Solutions, the shell company, the ownership link to Reynolds, and the forensic metadata proving the records were created artificially. Screenshots, timestamps, and forensic reports stacked like a mountain of proof. By the time she finished, the landlord's face was crimson. He leaned toward Cole, whispering furiously, but his attorney looked ashen, his confidence gone. Judge Patterson's eyes burned as he addressed Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds, do you have any explanation for this? The landlord stammered, sweat forming at his temples. I didn't. This is all a setup. She's lying! The judge's gavel cracked like thunder. Enough, the evidence says otherwise. What I see here is an attempt to manipulate this court. I will be referring this matter for criminal investigation. Maya returned to her seat, heart hammering but her face unreadable. Teresa reached for her hand, tears welling. Relief, gratitude, hope. But the victory was short-lived. As the court adjourned, Mr. Cole stood abruptly, his voice carrying like a whip. Your Honor, in light of these reckless allegations, my client intends to countersue for defamation. We'll be filing the paperwork immediately. The announcement struck like a lightning bolt. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even Maya's composure faltered for a split second. Judge Patterson raised a skeptical brow. You intend to countersue for defamation after being implicated in fabricating evidence? This court will require extraordinary proof to entertain such a claim. Cole straightened his tie, smug again. Your Honor, we'll provide that proof. The accusations against my client are baseless, and this trial has unfairly damaged his reputation. The judge exhaled heavily, his voice weary but sharp. You may file your motion, but let me be clear. This court will not tolerate frivolous litigation. Proceed at your own risk. The gavel came down, closing the session. Maya stayed seated as the crowd filed out, her mind racing. Teresa turned to her, pale, her voice trembling. Maya, what does this mean? Can he really do this? Maya's eyes hardened, her resolve unshaken. He's bluffing. He knows his case is weak, so he's throwing everything he can to scare us. But we're not going anywhere. That evening, Maya gathered her small but determined team in the modest living room of her grandmother's home. Teresa sat nervously on the couch, wringing her hands. Clara moved gracefully around the room with a teapot, pouring steaming cups of chamomile, its aroma filling the air. Aaron hunched over his laptop, already sifting through files. Maya stood at the center of it all, papers spread out before her like a general planning for war. This countersuit, she began, her voice calm but edged with steel, is nothing more than a distraction. But make no mistake, if we ignore it, it could muddy the waters. They want to confuse the judge, bury the truth, and paint Teresa as the villain. Aaron looked up, eyes sharp behind his glasses. While you were in court, I kept digging. Reynolds isn't just hiding behind Harmony Solutions. He's tied to at least 3 other shell companies. And I'm telling you, these aren't just slush funds. I found payments routed offshore, tax evasion schemes, money being funneled into accounts under fake names. It's messy, but it's big. Clara's eyes widened, her hand tightening around her teacup. Maya, if that's true, this man isn't just a crooked landlord. He's a criminal on a much larger scale. Maya nodded grimly. Exactly. But here's the catch, we can't let this turn into a circus. If we throw everything at once, it looks like we're on a witch hunt. We need a precise strategy, ironclad proof, and a direct line connecting these schemes back to Teresa's case. Teresa, sitting small in the corner, shook her head, her voice trembling. This is too much. I never asked for any of this. I just wanted to keep a roof over my kids' heads. Now it feels like my life is on trial. Maya crouched beside her, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. I know, Teresa, and that's exactly why we fight. Because this isn't just about you anymore. He's done this to others. You stood up, and now we have a chance to expose everything. No matter how dirty he plays, we will not back down. The next day, the courthouse buzzed like a beehive. Reporters crowded the steps, cameras flashing as Maya walked in with her team, her navy blazer crisp, her face unreadable. Inside, Judge Patterson reviewed the countersuit motion with visible skepticism. Mr. Cole, he said, raising an eyebrow, your motion makes bold claims. Do you have actual evidence to support these allegations of defamation? Cole straightened his tie, puffing himself up. Yes, Your Honor. We intend to call witnesses who will testify to the irreparable harm these baseless accusations have caused my client. Mr. Reynolds is a respected businessman, and his reputation has been dragged through the mud by this child's theatrics. Maya rose smoothly. Your Honor, this countersuit is nothing more than a smokescreen. Mr. Reynolds is attempting to divert attention from his misconduct. We request the opportunity to depose him and his witnesses before this motion is allowed to proceed. The judge considered, his gavel hovering. Very well. Depositions will be scheduled. Court is adjourned. A week later, the deposition unfolded in a cramped conference room. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the air was thick with tension. Across from Maya sat Mr. Reynolds, his face smug but his eyes betraying unease. Cole sat stiffly beside him, flanked by a stenographer recording every word. Maya leaned forward, her eyes locked on Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds, can you explain why deposits from Harmony Solutions appear in your personal bank account? Reynolds shifted, his smirk faltering. That's none of your business. It is directly relevant, Maya shot back. Harmony Solutions fabricated financial records that were used to attack my client. Are you denying your connection to this company? Reynolds' face darkened. I don't have to answer that. You do, Maya said evenly, if you want this court to believe your countersuit has merit. Cole jumped in, his voice sharp. Objection. These questions are irrelevant to the matter of defamation. Maya turned to him, her gaze unflinching. On the contrary, counsel, if your client claims defamation, then his credibility is central to this case, and the evidence shows he has been running fraudulent companies to exploit tenants. If anyone's reputation is in question, it's his. The room grew heavy with silence. The stenographer's keys clicked steadily, capturing every word. In the following days, Aaron unearthed even more. Reynolds wasn't just guilty of one fraudulent shell company. He had built an entire empire of deception. Harmony Solutions was tied to 3 other entities, each one linked to schemes targeting vulnerable tenants across the city. Low-income families had been manipulated, threatened, and squeezed dry for every dollar. When Maya returned to court armed with this evidence, the air in the room was electric. Reporters filled every seat, their pens scratching furiously. The tension was palpable. Maya delivered her findings with the calm authority of someone twice her age. Step by step, she laid bare Reynolds' criminal web, the shell companies, the forged records, the intimidation tactics. She painted a chilling picture of a man who had built his fortune by crushing the powerless. Judge Patterson's expression grew darker with each revelation. At last he turned to Cole, his voice a razor's edge. Do you have any response to these allegations? Cole stammered, his confidence shattered. Your Honor, we believe these claims are unrelated to the countersuit. Unrelated? The judge's gavel cracked down. These allegations speak directly to your client's credibility and his pattern of deceit. This court will not proceed with your countersuit until these matters are fully investigated. Relief surged through Maya, but before she could breathe, the doors of the courtroom burst open. 2 men in dark suits strode in, badges flashing in the fluorescent light. Your Honor, one said, his voice cutting through the silence, we are federal investigators. We've been conducting an ongoing probe into Mr. Reynolds, and we have here a warrant for his arrest. The gallery erupted in gasps and whispers as the officers approached the landlord. Reynolds' face drained of color. This is a mistake, he shouted, his voice cracking as handcuffs snapped around his wrists. You can't do this. I'm innocent. Judge Patterson slammed his gavel. Order. But the courtroom was chaos. Reporters leapt to their feet, cameras clicking furiously. Spectators craned their necks, some whispering in shock, others smiling in vindication. Maya sat frozen, her heart pounding. She hadn't expected this, but she knew instantly that everything had changed. This court will reconvene tomorrow to determine how to proceed, Judge Patterson announced sternly before adjourning. Teresa clutched Maya's arm. Does this mean it's over? Is he really going to jail? Maya shook her head slowly, her voice steady. It's a huge step, but not the end. We have to see how this plays out. That evening, back at Clara's kitchen table, the team regrouped. Aaron's laptop glowed as he scrolled through breaking news. Headlines screamed across the screen. Landlord arrested in federal fraud probe. Aaron looked up, eyes wide. Maya, they've been investigating him for years. Tax fraud, wire fraud, tenant exploitation. This guy's been running schemes all across the state. Clara leaned back, her face solemn. It's no wonder he was desperate to silence Teresa. Exposing this case must have tipped the scales for the investigators. Maya sat quietly, her tea cooling in her hands. She should have felt triumph, but deep inside, a whisper told her the battle wasn't over. If anything, the fight had just entered a new, more dangerous stage. Maya nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. We need to prepare for tomorrow. Reynolds may be in custody, but his attorney isn't done. He'll try to push the countersuit or throw something else at us. We have to be ready. Aaron frowned, fingers drumming on the table. Even without Reynolds, they're still swinging. They're desperate. Desperate people are dangerous, Maya said firmly. But the judge has seen the truth. If we stay sharp, we'll outlast them. The next morning, the courthouse carried an eerie hush. The air felt lighter without Reynolds' hulking presence. Yet every seat was filled. Reporters, tenants, curious citizens. The world was watching. Judge Patterson entered, his robe sweeping as he mounted the bench. His tone was grave. Before we proceed, I must address recent developments. The arrest of Mr. Reynolds raises serious questions about the integrity of this case. However, this court will still evaluate all relevant evidence before issuing a ruling. Mr. Cole stood, his voice cracking but defiant. Your Honor, while my client is unavailable, the countersuit remains valid and should proceed based on the merits of our claims. Maya rose smoothly. Your Honor, the countersuit has no merit. The fabricated records, Mr. Reynolds' arrest, and his history of misconduct strip this case of any credibility. Allowing it to continue would be an insult to justice. The judge steepled his fingers, nodding slowly. Miss Brooks makes a strong argument. Still, for fairness, I will allow the defense to present their witnesses before I issue a ruling. Mr. Cole, proceed. Cole called his first witness, a middle-aged tenant from another Reynolds property. The man spoke nervously, praising Reynolds as a fair landlord who had never mistreated him. Maya listened, pen tapping lightly against her notebook. When it was her turn, she walked to the witness stand with quiet poise. Mr. Davis, she began, you testified that Mr. Reynolds treated you fairly. Have you ever had a dispute with him? No, the man admitted. Ever been threatened with eviction? No. Rent hikes you couldn't explain? No, Maya tilted her head. So your experience with Mr. Reynolds is limited to your own property, correct? The man hesitated. Yes. And you're aware he owns multiple properties, often under different business names? I've heard rumors. Rumors, Maya echoed softly. Rumors can be telling. No further questions. By mid-afternoon, the defense's case was crumbling. Witness after witness offered shallow praise, but none could counter the hard evidence Maya had stacked against Reynolds. Cole's shoulders sagged, his eyes dull with exhaustion. Maya rose for her final argument, her voice steady but electric with conviction. Your Honor, this is not just about Teresa Carter. It's about power, about a man who used wealth and intimidation to exploit those with less. Mr. Reynolds' arrest, the fraudulent evidence, the shell companies, all point to a clear pattern of abuse. This countersuit is nothing but a smokescreen. It deserves no place in this courtroom. She turned, her eyes meeting Teresa's trembling hands on the table. Miss Carter is a hard-working mother, a tenant who has done nothing wrong but stand up for her rights. She deserves justice, and this court has the power to deliver it. A hush fell over the courtroom as Maya returned to her seat. Cole avoided her gaze, defeated. Judge Patterson took his time, reviewing his notes. Finally, his gavel struck with authority. Based on the evidence presented, it is the ruling of this court that the countersuit lacks merit and is hereby dismissed with prejudice. We will now proceed with the original case. The words hit like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Teresa exhaled a shaky breath, tears brimming in her eyes. Maya allowed herself the faintest smile of relief, but just as the courtroom began to empty, a bailiff approached Maya, a sealed envelope in his hand. This was just delivered for you. Maya tore it open, scanning quickly. Her stomach dropped. A subpoena. They filed a motion to introduce new evidence, she whispered. Her pulse quickened. The hearing was set for tomorrow. Teresa, still glowing from relief, caught the shift in Maya's face. What is it? She asked nervously. Maya handed her the document. New evidence. Teresa's face drained of color. New evidence? What else can they possibly throw at us? Maya placed a steady hand on her arm. Whatever it is, we'll be ready. This is just another desperate stall tactic. That night, Maya called Aaron. His reaction was immediate. New evidence? After everything? That's bold. Either they're bluffing, or they've got something big. Find out, Maya said. Check everyone Cole's been working with since Reynolds' arrest. I need to know where this is coming from. I'm on it, Aaron promised. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Reporters whispered predictions. Spectators leaned forward in their seats. Judge Patterson entered, face unreadable. Mr. Cole, you've requested to introduce new evidence. Please explain. Cole rose, holding a manila folder, his voice regaining a dangerous confidence. Your Honor, this evidence challenges the plaintiff's credibility and her claims of financial hardship. He handed the folder to the bailiff, who delivered it to the judge. Patterson flipped it open, eyes narrowing as he scanned the contents. Miss Brooks, he said, have you reviewed this evidence? No, Your Honor, Maya replied. This is the first time I've seen it. Very well. You may respond after the defense presents its case. Cole turned to the court, his tone swelling with false certainty. These are sworn affidavits from multiple witnesses who claim Miss Carter has been operating an unreported business, a cash-only daycare service, from her apartment. The courtroom gasped. Reporters' pens flew across paper. Cameras clicked. At the plaintiff's table, Teresa went rigid, her face pale as paper. That's not true, she whispered hoarsely. I don't know what they're talking about. Maya leaned close, her voice steady despite the storm raging around them. Don't worry. We'll handle this. Lies can't stand up to the truth. Cole wasn't finished. He produced grainy photos of adults escorting children into Teresa's building. Here is visual evidence, he declared triumphantly, proving our claim. All eyes turned to Teresa, whose hands shook as she stared at the photos. The tension was suffocating. Maya straightened her back, fire blazing in her eyes. This was their boldest move yet, and she was ready to tear it apart. The defense hammered their argument, insisting that Teresa's alleged cash-only daycare undermined her claim of financial hardship and raised doubts about her credibility. The gallery murmured, tension building. For a moment, Teresa felt the weight of every eye in the courtroom pressing down on her. But Maya didn't flinch. She rose, walking to the bench with the same unshakable calm she had shown since day one. Your Honor, she said firmly, may I examine these affidavits? Judge Patterson gestured to the bailiff, who handed her copies of the documents. Maya spread them across the table, eyes scanning quickly but meticulously. Her sharp gaze caught details others missed, inconsistent handwriting, vague timelines, language so generic it could have applied to anyone. She looked up at the defense attorney. Mr. Cole, can you confirm the identities of these witnesses? And were they deposed? Cole shifted uncomfortably. They have not yet been deposed, but the affidavits are signed and notarized. Maya's lips curved in the faintest, knowing smile. Notarized does not equal credible. Without depositions, these are nothing more than paper with ink. We cannot verify their truth, she turned to the judge. Your Honor, I formally request that these witnesses be made available for depositions before any consideration of this evidence. Otherwise, the risk of perjury and fabrication is far too high. Judge Patterson's expression hardened. That's reasonable. Mr. Cole, arrange depositions by the end of the week. Until then, this evidence will not be admitted. The gavel came down. A small victory. But outside the courtroom, the allegations still hung in the air like smoke. As they walked to the car, Teresa finally broke. Her steps faltered, tears spilling freely. Maya, what if they believe this? I don't even know these people. How do I prove I'm not lying when they're the ones fabricating everything? Maya wrapped her arms around her. Her voice was steady, soothing, but behind her eyes burned fire. We'll prove it, Teresa. We'll shred their lies the way we've shredded every trick before this. They want you to feel helpless. But we're not helpless. Not anymore. That night, Aaron called, his tone urgent but triumphant. Maya, I dug into the affidavits. You'll want to hear this. One of the so-called witnesses, she's connected to a property management firm that oversees Reynolds' buildings. Maya's eyes narrowed. So she's on his payroll. Indirectly, Aaron clarified. But it gets better. 2 others are tied to Harmony Solutions. Same shell company we already exposed. Maya exhaled slowly, a grim smile forming. Aaron, you just gave me the rope they're going to hang themselves with. Keep digging. I want everything on these people. Employment records, digital footprints, anything that shows they're compromised. Already in motion, Aaron said. And trust me, Their stories won't hold up under pressure. The next morning, Maya's deposition strategy was surgical. One by one, she dismantled the so-called witnesses. She exposed their connections to Reynolds' empire, forcing them to stumble and contradict themselves. One woman, her hands trembling, cracked under the pressure. "Yes," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was paid to sign the affidavit. I didn't even read it." Another witness, cornered by Maya's relentless questioning, stammered, I thought I was signing a tenant rights petition. I didn't know it was about this case." By the end of the depositions, the entire facade had collapsed. Maya walked back into court armed with the truth. "Your Honor," she said, her tone cutting like glass, "this evidence is not only unreliable, it's fraudulent. Witnesses have admitted under oath that they were misled or bribed. The defense has attempted once again to weaponize lies against my client." Judge Patterson's face darkened. He turned to Cole. "This court has had enough of these stunts. The affidavits are inadmissible, and I am considering sanctions for this repeated misconduct." Cole's face flushed crimson. Teresa's tears of fear transformed into tears of relief. For a moment, it felt like justice was finally taking hold, but victory was fleeting. As the hearing adjourned, Maya and Teresa stepped into the crisp evening air. The courthouse loomed behind them, bathed in fading sunlight. Reporters lingered, snapping photos, but Maya kept her focus forward, her mind already on the next step. That's when she saw him. A man in a dark suit emerged from the shadows of the parking lot. He moved with deliberate calm, his hands in his pockets, his eyes fixed on her. He stopped just feet away, his voice low and cold. "Miss Brooks," he said. "A word of advice, back off. You don't know who you're dealing with." The words dripped with menace. His presence was calculated, meant to intimidate. Maya's pulse quickened, but her face was stone. "If that's a threat," she said evenly, "you'll have to do better. I'm not going anywhere." The man's lips twisted into a chilling smile. "Suit yourself. But don't say I didn't warn you." With that, he turned and melted into the crowd, his figure vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Teresa, hurrying out behind Maya, caught the tail end of the exchange. "Who was that?" she asked, her voice shaking. Maya scanned the lot, her eyes sharp, her jaw clenched. "I don't know. But it's clear Reynolds' circle isn't just playing dirty anymore. They're escalating." Teresa's face was pale, her body trembling. "Maya, this is dangerous. Maybe we should stop." Maya turned to her, her voice ironclad. "That's exactly what they want. If we back down now, they win. And they'll keep doing this to people who can't fight back. I won't let that happen." Teresa swallowed hard, nodding reluctantly. But the fear lingered in her eyes. That night, Maya sat at her desk, the confrontation replaying in her mind like a broken record. The man's tone, his smile, his calculated warning. For the first time, Maya realized this battle was no longer confined to the courtroom. It had spilled into the shadows, and the people she was fighting against were willing to cross lines she hadn't yet imagined. Her pen hovered over her notebook as she wrote one sentence across the page. "They think fear will break me. They're wrong." The following morning, the courthouse felt different. The marble halls echoed with tension, as if everyone inside knew this was the day everything would come to a head. Reporters clustered at the entrance, their cameras trained on the young woman who had turned a tenant dispute into a citywide reckoning. Maya Brooks walked in with Teresa at her side, her steps steady, her chin high. She could still hear the echo of the man's threat from the night before, but instead of fear, it fueled her resolve. Inside, Judge Patterson called the courtroom to order. "Today," he said gravely, "we will hear closing arguments in Carter v. Reynolds. The defense may begin." Mr. Cole rose, his face drawn but still clinging to defiance. He painted Reynolds as a misunderstood landlord, accused unjustly by tenants seeking sympathy. He waved at affidavits, discredited or not, and insisted that Teresa had misled the court. His words carried bravado, but even he knew they rang hollow. Then it was Maya's turn. She stood, her small frame dwarfed by the oak podium, yet commanding the room with every word. "Your Honor." "Ladies and gentlemen of this court," she began, her voice clear, "this case is about more than rent, or leases, or legal technicalities. This case is about truth, and about the abuse of power." She walked slowly, deliberately across the courtroom. For weeks, the defense has thrown distraction after distraction. Fabricated records, false witnesses, baseless accusations. Each time we've shown the truth. Each time their lies have collapsed under scrutiny. She turned toward Teresa, then back to the judge. "Miss Carter is not a liar. She is a mother. A woman who followed every rule, paid every bill, and asked for nothing but fairness. And for that, she was targeted. Why? Because a man with money and influence thought he could silence her, profit from her, and leave her with nothing. The gallery was silent, every word landing like a hammer," Maya continued, her voice rising just enough to carry urgency. "But power without accountability breeds corruption. And corruption thrives when good people do nothing. That's why I'm here. Not because I wear a suit or because of my age, but because I refuse to let injustice win. If this court allows Reynolds' schemes to succeed, what message does that send to every tenant, every hardworking family, every person who's ever been told they're powerless? That message cannot stand." She returned to the podium, her eyes locking with the judges. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. Reynolds falsified documents. He intimidated witnesses. He even tried to weaponize this very court. My client deserves justice, and this court has the opportunity to deliver it today." When she finished, there was no applause, no chatter, just heavy silence. Even the reporters seemed to have forgotten their cameras. Judge Patterson leaned back, his expression unreadable. He shuffled papers, tapped his gavel, and finally spoke. "This court has carefully reviewed all arguments, evidence, and testimony presented. It is clear that Mr. Reynolds engaged in a pattern of fraudulent and unethical behavior designed to intimidate and exploit his tenants. The court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Miss Teresa Carter. The eviction is nullified, and damages are awarded to the plaintiff." Gasps broke through the silence. Teresa covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Maya reached for her hand, squeezing it gently, her own eyes glistening but steady. The judge wasn't finished. His gaze shifted toward Mr. Cole. "Furthermore, this court will be forwarding all findings regarding fabricated evidence and witness tampering to the appropriate authorities." "Justice will not end here," the gavel struck. Case closed. The room erupted, reporters scrambling, spectators whispering, Teresa sobbing with relief. And at the center of it all stood Maya Brooks, the 17-year-old prodigy who had faced down a corrupt system, a ruthless landlord, and even shadowy threats outside the courtroom. And won. As they exited, Teresa hugged her tightly. "You saved us, Maya. You didn't just give me justice. You gave me hope." Maya smiled softly, her voice low but resolute. "This isn't just about hope. It's about change. And this is only the beginning. If this story moved you, don't just scroll away. Share it. Let others be reminded that courage has no age, justice has no boundaries, and truth has no fear. And if you want more stories that inspire, challenge, and ignite change, subscribe now. Because together, we can shine a light where others want to keep the world in the dark.